Welcome back, Warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. Today, we've got some news out of New York concerning the civil fraud case with Leticia James and Donald J. Trump. We've got to go over this. I'm going to show you some clips. Well, one clip of Donald Trump's attorneys fighting this on the appeal and what is being said. And I'll leave the full link in the description. But before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Now let's get into it. All right, so here it is. Will Leticia James's case against Trump be dropped before or after the election? What do you reckon? Almost $500 million that Donald Trump is supposed. And I thought they had, gotten it down to like 175 million. I don't know what happened there, but in any event, this is the appeal. These are Donald Trump's attorneys, and let's check out this clip.
Units at Aberdeen. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to make optimistic projections. You're allowed to disregard appraisals. What Professor Bartoff said is that appraisal could be sitting on your desk, and you don't have to rely on it. And there's actually really powerful evidence in this case to show why that's true. Because if you look at 40 Wall Street, they said, in 2011 and 2012, the appraisals of 40 Wall Street were at 200 to 220 million, and you said 527 million. But they overlooked that a couple of years later. Cushman revised its appraisal and said it's worth 540 million, virtually matching what we had said, and they say is misleading. So it's kind of these astonishing issues. It's very similar to the valuation of Mar-a-Lago as $18 million based on a tax assessment. It's preposterous. It's a preposterous position that these factual things. So that's my first answer to that. But secondly, more importantly, we have sophisticated counterparties, as a lot of the questions pointed out. They're getting clear disclaimers. The disclaimers say what everybody already knows you do in this industry. You do your own due diligence. So how is there a capacity or tendency to deceive when you have these very clear disclaimers saying considerable judgment is required here? These values don't reflect what might be realized upon a sale and so forth.
Well, what about the Attorney General's point that may be true in this case, but we are trying to create a fair and honest marketplace, which will inure to the benefit of the public in the long run?
Yeah, and I would say two things in response to that. First, all the questions about line drawing. If this case falls on the other side of the line, there is no line. I mean, you heard, I think, for 15 minutes, respectfully, my colleagues struggle to articulate any clear principle that would put any transaction outside the reach of the statute on the Attorney General's very broad and sweeping view. So our position is narrow, which is that on the facts of this case, all these things I've referred to, no reliance, no materiality, Deutsche Bank saying we want to give them the exact same deal, and we have clear disclaimers. Surely this is not within the statute. And if this is, there's nothing that falls outside of the statute. And that is a sweeping and unsettling thing. The second point I make about that is...
And I'm sorry, just to tie a ribbon around that, do you mean based on the facts as they were adduced on the respective records, the summary judgment motion as to cause of action 1, the trial record as to 2 through 7? Yeah. Not that the AG didn't have an interest, at least at the outset, in investigating and maybe commencing the proceeding.
We're not disputing that in this.
They certainly have that interest.
You're saying once you got all the facts before the court.
That may have been, I wasn't on that case, but that may have been the point of our prior decision, which Mr. Isaac brought up about this being at the pleading stage. Yes, so it was enough at the pleading stage, but at the end doesn't mean this is what should happen.
That's exactly right, Your Honor. Here we have all the facts before the court.
But the pleadings in this case, I'm sorry, counsel, but the pleading in this case is like a novel. It goes on at length, 327 pages or something like that. And basically those were the facts that Justice Engoron found were proved at trial. So aren't we bound by our prior decision? I asked this question in another way before.
Very significant variations. I just want to flag when I see my red light is on. Pleading, the complaint, cites GAAP like 50 times. They said these statements are bad because they violate GAAP. But you go to the summary judgment record, they have nothing. They don't put anything on GAAP. The trial court never cites GAAP. Our experts say these are GAAP compliant. That's unrebutted. So there's this the record looks totally different once all the facts are in. And I know my time has expired, so I thank the court for its time.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'm actually going to go under my time. I just have one observation, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but this argument, if it doesn't show why not making a summary judgment motion was appropriate, I don't know what is. There was absolutely nothing wrong with what the attorneys did. My adversary said that she's relying on the Ernst & Young case. I read to you what you said. That's exactly what you did. One more point and I'll sit down. Keep relying on Greenberg. This is what the Greenberg court said, Greenberg 2. Initially, we note that defendants may not raise issues on appeal that were not preserved on the record for our review. So even if they're right about what this court said and they're not right, it wouldn't matter anyway, because lawyers have to preserve issues for all courts that may consider it. They have to look at things not temporally at the time, but what could happen afterward. And given that, and this isn't Brian Isaac or it's not Michael Ross. I'm reading to you from the court. They did what they were supposed to do. They did what they had to do. To sanction them is just wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so there you have it. Donald Trump's lawyers on this appeal. He's up for about $500 million, but I think it might get dropped, because his lawyers, and the lady there was, the adversary. She's working against, Donald Trump's team and wanting him to have to come up with all this money in the civil fraud case. And this is over all the overestimations of Donald Trump's businesses, and it's always brought up, when you have an estimate of how much something is worth, all banks do their due diligence to determine if this is not what this property is worth or if it is what it is worth. The banks agreed to the terms and the money was paid back in full with interest. So other companies around New York were looking like, we all do this. If they come after him, they could come after us. And see, again, Democrat policies, everything they do is mess everything up. You got other companies don't even want to be in New York. They've left. Because if they can go after a former president, someone is well known and been in the public eye for decades, like Donald Trump, they could certainly go after them. And that's what happened. That's what they get. Destroying, when you have Democrats in power, this is what happens every time. Cities with Democrats over them, they do not do well. And to go after this man, this is totally political. I did a live on this, the whole Alvin Bragg case. It was a leaked video. This man was out on a date with this woman, and he clearly said that everything is political with Alvin Bragg. Yes. This woman had her phone on and everything, talking to the chief of public affairs and that whole thing. But this case is so politicized, everything that Donald Trump, and we all know it. This is in an effort to keep him from the White House. But I just know there's a God in heaven that sits high and looks low. He knows. And God already told me, I told you guys that last year, the Lord showed me that all the cases against Donald Trump are not true, that he's innocent of them all. They're trying to imprison him and persecute him, that it is not fair, that he's being unjustly persecuted. And that's what the Lord told me. You guys gonna say, you lying on the Lord. Those of you who might come across this video that don't like Donald Trump, you lying, don't lie on the Lord. I'm not. You just don't like Trump, and you're not gonna get what you want. Sometimes we don't get what we want. And sometimes it ever occurred to you that you could have misinformation if you depend on the news to tell you everything and you don't dig deep and you don't seek God in prayer. Has it ever occurred to some of the people that might be watching my video? So don't get it twisted. I don't use the Lord's name like that loosely. I know when I hear from him, and that is what he said. And only time will tell, because right now, a lot of these cases involving Donald Trump, they are falling apart. Even the one with Fonnie Willis in that Georgia election interference case, it's been stated that she's not even, this is supposed to be prosecuted on a federal level. Well, she's not federal. So she wasn't even qualified. There you go. It's falling apart. Just go on and get rid of it. Because y'all know the man didn't mean make up some votes. He meant count the votes that you overlooked. You already know. So stop tripping, as we say. I brought up an old word from the 90s. Stop tripping and go and let the man go and let this country be great again. The demons are real. And those were Donald Trump's attorneys. This is an appeal. And of course, Judge Engoron, the one that looks like a judge from a 1980 sitcom, just sitting up there with those yellow teeth. They didn't show him in this clip. But yes, so anyway, thank y'all for watching. I'm going to put the full link in the description. We can only pray about all these things. I just wanted you to know what was going on. This was actually from yesterday. You all be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America. And as they always say, march on, warriors.